Good morning. NBC News exclusive photos from that Duke lacrosse party. What do they say about what happened that night? High wire act. Nearly 70 people stranded hundreds of feet in the air in two New York City tram cars this morning. The dramatic rescue. And yes, Suri, that's their baby. Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes named their baby girl Suri, and Tomcat and their new little kitten are all said to be doing well today, Wednesday, April 19th, 2006.
From NBC News, this is Today with Katie Couric and Matt Lauer, live from Studio 1A in Rockefeller Plaza.
And welcome to Today on this Wednesday morning, everyone. I'm Katie Couric.
And I'm Matt Lauer. We've been hearing about these photos taken at the Duke lacrosse party for several days now. You're actually going to see some of those photos for the first time for yourself this morning.
That's right, Matt. NBC News has obtained exclusive access to the photos. We have blurred parts of them. Do they prove the two men who've been arrested are in fact innocent? We'll have much more just ahead.
Then oil prices near $71 a barrel today. That's a day after hitting record highs. And check this out in the New York Daily News. Gas going for $4.50 a gallon at one station in Brooklyn here in New York City. A lot of people are blaming Iran for the spike in energy prices. Coming up, we're going to ask Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Thomas Friedman if there's anything that can be done about that. Plus, we'll have more on the investigation into the disappearance of Natalie Holloway. We'll hear from Natalie's mom for the first time since the arrest of a 19-year-old.
Then we'll have much more on Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes' new baby. Her name, as we mentioned, is Suri, which is princess in Hebrew and red rose in Persian. Remember how Cruise and Brooke Shields feuded last year? How could you forget? Over drugs used to treat postpartum depression. Well, Hollywood could not write a better script because Brooke Shields also had her baby on the exact same day as Tom Cruise, and I'm betting, Matt, they won't be making plans for any play dates anytime soon.
Not in the immediate future, but
anyway,
maybe they bury the hatchet.
Listen, I'm happy for all of them, and we're going to have details and explain why Cruise apparently wanted what is referred to as a silent birth, and we'll try to figure out what that's all about.
All right, but first we want to talk more about the Duke rape case. We'll have more on these exclusive photos from the lacrosse party in just a couple of minutes, but we begin with some new developments in the investigation. NBC's Ron Mott is in Durham, North Carolina once again this morning. Ron, good morning to you.
Matt, good morning to you. Investigators have made it loud and clear through actions, not words, that they consider the quest for clues at Duke far from over.
Evidence that this investigation is still active. Late last night, Duke campus police escorting detectives executing a search warrant of a dorm. The district attorney had indicated on Tuesday that he'd hoped to indict a third Duke lacrosse player, perhaps joining indicted teammates Reed Seligman and Colin Finnerty.
This is Danny.
And at the nearby North Carolina Central, the accuser's school.
I think they might get away with it just because they have money. And they most likely have good, powerful attorneys.
Both players are due back here in court in mid-May for the official start of what could be a long legal proceeding. Katie?
All right, Ron Mott. Ron, thanks so much. Let's turn now to those exclusive photographs from the night in question. NBC's chief legal correspondent, Dan Abrams, is the only reporter who has obtained them. Dan, good morning.
Well, good morning, Katie. For weeks now, we've been hearing about these photos taken at that party. And the lawyers for the defense believe it establishes a timeline that shows that the two men arrested could not and did not commit this crime. Now, remember, according to the defense, this begins at about midnight when the dancers arrive at the house. That's when the first photos, they say, are taken. They say they're time-stamped digitally. They also say they're verified by watches that some of the young men are wearing that are consistent with the timestamps. They also say they've had an expert who's verified that they have not been taken out of sequence. At about 12:04, it seems both the men and the accuser agree that some words were exchanged and the women stopped dancing. This is where the stories diverge. The accuser says she went out to her car before she was coaxed back into the house, then taken into the bathroom and brutally raped. But lawyers for the players say the pictures tell a different story. They say she could not have been brutally raped before smiling at almost 12:31. Just over 7 minutes later, the accuser's seen lying on the top of this stoop, leaving only a 7-minute window, they say, for what she initially said was a 30-minute rape. The final photo from 12:41 appears to show the two women leaving. And even if a rape could have occurred between 12:31 and 12:38, the defense lawyers say, the two men arrested certainly could not have done it. They say Colin Finnerty was not even at the house when the women were dancing, and that none of the photos of some 25 men include Finnerty. And while Reed Seligman is in some pictures, they say they can prove he left shortly after the women stopped dancing, and well before 12:31 a.m. The defense team says his phone attorney has suggested the accusers struggled with the attackers, so much so that her artificial fingernails broke off. So why was none of their DNA found under her fingernails?
Evidence that she would present with respect to that.
Now, it's unclear how much the prosecutor knew about these claims before he sought the indictment, and it's also unclear whether this could actually change his mind about whether to move forward with the case. Katie?
Well, Dan, as a lawyer, how powerful do you think this evidence is when you're analyzing everything that's happened so far and all the evidence in the case?
It is powerful evidence. I mean, if you assume that the timestamps are accurate, and if you look at the watches in the photos, and you accept the timeline, it does very much narrow the opportunity for anyone to have raped this woman. And then when you isolate it so much, they're then going to have to figure out exactly who was there, who could have done that, and that makes it a tougher case for prosecutors.
All right. Well, Dan Abrams, Dan in Durham, North Carolina, thanks so much.
Okay, Katie.
It is 7:09. Once again, here's Matt.
Katie, thanks. Now to a terrifying night for some people here in New York City. Nearly 70 tram riders spent as many as 12 hours, hundreds of feet up in the air, after their cable cars got stuck. NBC's Ron Allen has more on that. Ron, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt. There's been a lot of high drama out here. The tram apparently had a mechanical failure, and a backup system also broke down, leaving 68 people, including about a dozen kids, stranded up there, some 250 feet above Manhattan. Rescue workers had to stage a high wire act to save the day. The tram offers commuters and tourists breathtaking views of New York. But Tuesday night, the best advice was, don't look down. Brian and Robin Mayer raced from work because their son Dax, 12, and his babysitter taking the boy to tennis practice were trapped.
At this point, he's just waiting it out, and hopefully he'll get through this without too much.
Fortunately, they and others could talk to the passengers by cell phone.
Mom? Hi, Daxie.
Hey, Mom, are you worried about me?
Of course I'm worried about you.
Hours ticked by while rescuers figured out what to do. Two cars were stuck near opposite ends of a half-mile run that usually takes about 5 minutes, crossing from Manhattan 250 feet over the East River to Roosevelt Island.
I love you too much.
Love you too much, too.
Dax said he tried to stay calm as rescuers slowly rode a basket-like gondola to the tram, then lifted the passengers out and carried them to safety in groups of 10.
What we're going to do is make sure that we do it the right way and the correct way and not rush to take any more risks than are necessary.
Eventually, 7 hours later, Dax arrived with his nanny.
I felt like I was kind of like a movie stuntman a little bit.
Later, rescuers used a large industrial crane to lower the rest of the passengers down. Dax said he learned a lesson.
I believe that sometimes when you're stuck in a really bad problem, it can be solved if you just wait a little bit.
Some of his fellow passengers had waited almost 11 hours. He's quite a young man. The good news is that everyone was just fine. They emerged in pretty good spirits considering what they'd been through. The tram is about 30 years old. This is not the first time it's been plagued by a stall or a stoppage, and it's now shut down and awaiting a complete overhaul and safety inspection. Matt?
All right, Ron, thank you very much. And question we both had, it's a long time
without using
the facilities, as we would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, now let's head over to the news
think.
desk where Ann has the rest of the morning's top stories. Ann, good morning.
Katie, Matt, good morning. Good morning, everybody. In the news this morning, a major setback for Saddam Hussein this morning. The judge at his trial announced that handwriting experts have authenticated Saddam's signature on documents ordering the crackdown on Shiites in the 1980s. 148 people were killed in that crackdown. After meeting with governors just back from Iraq this morning, President Bush speaks on the war on terror. Tuesday, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld was again on the hot seat, responding to calls from 7 retired generals for him to resign. NBC's Jim Miklaszewski's at the Pentagon this morning for us, as he is usually. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Ann. Refusing to acknowledge they made any strategic mistakes in conducting the war in Iraq, both the president and secretary are firmly digging in their heels against those calls for Rumsfeld's resignation. President Bush left no doubt about who he thinks. Rumsfeld has always been a political lightning rod for the Bush administration, and Democratic lawmakers are now promising to keep this controversy alive when they return to Washington next week. And
all right, Jim Miklaszewski this morning. Thank you so much at the Pentagon. At the penalty trial for Zacarias Moussaoui, the defense is continuing its effort to portray Moussaoui as mentally ill. On Tuesday, Moussaoui shouted, "Crazy or not crazy, that is the question." Today, Pope Benedict XVI marked the one-year anniversary of his election as pontiff before tens of thousands of people he asked for continued prayers. Today, oil prices retreated a bit after hitting a record $71.35 a barrel on Tuesday. In some places, as Matt has mentioned, gas prices have already jumped well above $4 a gallon. Overseas markets were higher this morning following Tuesday's gain of 195 points on Wall Street. It was the Dow's biggest gain in a year. China's President Hu Jintao is in the United States for talks expected to focus on trade. He met on Tuesday with Bill Gates and goes to the White House tomorrow. Police in Las Vegas have arrested one person and are looking for others in a vicious beating over the weekend caught on videotape. Police have released the videotape, hoping to catch the people who punched and kicked a casino worker. And almost 37 years after he became the first man to walk on the moon, NASA gave Neil Armstrong a piece of moon rock on Tuesday. The rock will be on permanent display at a museum in Ohio, Armstrong's home state. A proud moment. It is now 7:15. Let's now turn back to Katie and Matt this morning.
All right, Ann. Thanks very much.
Meanwhile, Matt, who can turn the world on with his smile?
The Candyman can.
No, who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all
That would be Al
worthwhile?
Roker in Minneapolis.
That's right. Hey, Al.
Oh, here
hey
he comes.
Guys, how you doing? Good to see you. We got the big Penske truck driving here, my good buddy Joe taking care of us, and we are here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities, and thanks for that Mary Tyler Moore reference. Anyway, we are going to reveal our charity in just a little bit as we continue our Lend a Hand Today tour. But let's take a look at what's going on weather-wise today. Midsection of the country getting pounded once again. Strong storms. We got a risk of isolated tornadoes and strong storms from San Angelo, Texas, all the way up into Nashville, Tennessee. You can see heavy rain, thunderstorms working their way through that area. Lexington, Kentucky, under the gun right now. That's what's going on around the country. Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods.
Good morning.
And that's your latest weather. Matt?
All right, Al, thanks so much. The price of oil remains at stratospheric levels this morning, a day after it hit a record high. It's driven in part by escalating tensions with Iran. So what now? Thomas Friedman is a foreign affairs columnist at the New York Times, and his bestseller, The World is Flat, is now newly updated and expanded. Tom, good to see you. Always nice to have you here.
Good to be here, Matt. Thanks.
Talk about the book in a second, okay? We're looking at gas prices here. I showed that example, gouging at its best, $4.50 here in New York. But clearly over the summer months, we're going to see some very high gas prices. We've gotten used to it. We grin and bear it. Questions.
Yeah, I mean, any 6-year-old could see the situation was out of control.
All right. Well, Tom Friedman, the book is called The World is Flat. It's been updated. An interesting chapter in there on the right stuff, where you talk about what parents and educators need to be instilling in our children to prepare them to deal with this new flat world. Tom Friedman, always good to have you here.
Great to be here, Matt. Thanks so much.
And we're back with much more on a Wednesday morning. But first, this is Today on NBC.
Hi, I'm
Tom Cameron Crazy.
Chet Huntley. David Brainerd. John Chen. Tom Brokaw.
A White House welcome for the Chinese president's first visit to the U.S. Tonight, oil, Iran, and the heckler who disrupted the script. Life and death. Why are families of some 9/11 victims testifying?